My name is Yolanda Estes, and I'm 32. If you asked my parents, they'd say Thanksgiving is our family glue. That one day when we put differences aside and smile for photos that pretend we're closer than we are. But to me, it's more like an annual performance. Everyone playing their assigned role, me included. When I pulled into their driveway this year, the evening light had that cold, burnt orange glow. The house smelled like cinnamon, wine, and overcooked rolls, all familiar, all exhausting. I balanced a box from a famous bakery in both hands, a cheesecake so good people lined up for it every weekend, and rang the doorbell. Mom opened it, wine glass in hand, lipstick uneven. "There's my girl," she sang, hugging me with one arm and snatching the dessert with the other. She didn't even check what it was. "Kitchen," she said lightly, walking away. In the living room, the football game was roaring. Dad was in his recliner, eyes locked on the screen, beer in hand. "Hey, Dad," I said. He grunted without looking up. Then came the sound of laughter. Ethan, my older brother, arriving late with his wife Rachel and their son Levi. Rachel swept in holding a store-bought pumpkin pie like it was a trophy. Mom squealed, "You brought dessert? Oh, perfect. You two always know how to make things special." I followed them to the kitchen, watching Mom clear counter space for the pie, right in the center, while my cheesecake was pushed to the side, half forgotten. It wasn't malicious, just habit. Like I was background noise to their main show. Dinner started like every other year, turkey too dry, smiles too forced, Rachel asking performative questions about my job. "So, still working from home?" she said, tilting her head. "That must be convenient." I smiled. "I manage a remote team. It's more pressure than it sounds." She blinked slowly, her lips curving. "Must be nice, though, all that time to yourself." It was the kind of remark that looked harmless from afar, but drew blood if you looked closer. Ethan jumped in with one of his stories, something about how his boss couldn't run the place without him. Dad beamed. Mom poured more wine. I sat there nodding, while Rachel and Mom gushed about the pie's perfect crust. No one mentioned the cheesecake. When I said I'd just gotten back from Spain, my first real vacation in years, Rachel's eyebrows rose. "Spain? Must be nice. Some of us can't just take off whenever." Ethan laughed under his breath. Mom's smile froze. I took a sip of water and stayed quiet. If I defended myself, I'd sound defensive. If I stayed silent, I'd sound cold. Either way, I'd lose. The meal went on. The turkey was bland. The conversation, worse. When dessert came, everyone dove for Rachel's pie, even though it was clearly store-bought. My cheesecake sat untouched. Then, between bites, Dad said it. Flat, casual, like he was reading a headline, still the family disappointment. The fork slipped from my hand. "What?" He didn't even look at me. "Just saying, you never did figure out how to stay close to home. Always somewhere else. Always busy." Mom gave a nervous laugh. Rachel wiped Levi's face. Ethan didn't look up. The moment dissolved into the sound of utensils scraping plates. That silence, that complicit silence, hit harder than his words. I stood up, slow and calm. "Thanks for dinner," I said. "Yolanda," Mom started, voice bright and panicked. "I'll text you later." No one stopped me. No one called after me. Outside, the air was sharp. My hands were trembling, but not from anger. It was something colder, realization. Back home, I set the cheesecake on my counter. The box had fogged over with condensation. I opened it and cut a slice. It was creamy, rich, everything it was supposed to be, just like me. I'd done everything right. Stable job, savings, independence, no drama. And still, somehow, I was their disappointment. I thought about Ethan and Rachel, about how they'd been living in my apartment for years, paying $500 a month when rent in that neighborhood had tripled. It started as a favor, just until we get on our feet. That was 4 years ago. Every time I hinted about raising it, they changed the subject. I ate another bite and stared at my reflection in the dark window. The city lights blurred behind me, gold and cold. That's when it hit me. They didn't respect me because I never made them. I was their silent helper, their invisible safety net. I picked up my phone, opened the Notes app, and typed 3 words: "No more favors." The decision settled in my chest, solid and final. I didn't know how ugly things would get, but for the first time in years, I felt something new. Not anger, not sadness, freedom. 2 weeks later, my phone rang in the middle of a quiet morning. I'd just finished a work call when I saw the name flash across the screen. Ethan. He never called, not unless he needed something. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey. Yolanda, why did my rent payment bounce? He snapped immediately. No greeting, no warmth. I paused, leaning back in my chair. Maybe, I said softly, the disappointment's finally pulling back. For a few seconds, there was only static. Then his voice hardened. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, keeping my tone calm, I'm done pretending you're a tenant instead of a guest. I've been giving you a luxury apartment for 4 years at a fraction of what it's worth. That changes next month. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Ethan laughed, that defensive, sharp kind of laugh that masks panic. Yolanda, you've lost your mind. Rachel's hours got cut. Levi's in daycare. You can't just... $2,500 starting next month, I interrupted. Still half of market value. You're heartless. I'm reasonable. He exploded then, said I was arrogant, cold, selfish, that I'd changed since getting my remote job. You think you're better than us? He spat. You travel, post pictures, act like you've got everything figured out, but you're still that same lonely girl who never fit in. The words didn't land, not like he hoped. I let the silence stretch. Then maybe, I said, you should start figuring things out for yourself. When I hung up, my hands were steady. 2 hours later, Rachel texted me, a long paragraph wrapped in emotional guilt. Levi doesn't deserve this. He adores you. We're family. Please don't do this to us. We'll be homeless if you keep pushing. The last line stuck out like a knife. You wouldn't do this if we were your real family. I read it 3 times. Then I deleted the message and blocked her number. That night, as I made tea, I replayed the Thanksgiving scene in my head. Dad calling me the family disappointment. Ethan laughing, Rachel smirking. The realization clicked into place like a puzzle piece that had been waiting years to fit. They only liked me when I was useful. A week passed. Then came another knock. Sharp, entitled pounding that shook the door. I didn't need to check the peephole to know. I opened it to see Ethan, red-faced, breathing hard, still in his work uniform. You're really doing this? He demanded, tripling the rent overnight. Actually, I said, it's less than half of market value. You're lucky. Lucky? His voice cracked. You've been paying off that place for years. You're set. You don't need the money. That's not the point. Then what is the point? I looked him dead in the eye. Respect. He scoffed. Respect? You think money buys that? You've always been a joke, Yolanda. You wouldn't last a month without your cushy job. My stomach went cold, not from hurt, but from clarity. New rent's now $2,500, I said evenly. He blinked. You're bluffing. I'm not. He laughed once, short, mean. You'll regret this. Then he turned, stomping down the hall, muttering about lawyers. There was no lease. Everything had been based on trust. My mistake. For a while, I thought that was the end. The fight, the fallout, the final word. But it wasn't. Because a few days later, I heard my name in a cafe conversation that froze the air around me. I'd been sitting by the window, half listening to 2 women at the next table talk about rising rent prices. One said, "Oh, my friend Rachel totally lucked out. Her sister's rich and too dumb to charge real rent." My stomach dropped. "Wait," the other woman said. "You mean the woman on the 5th floor?" "Yeah, Rachel something. She said her sister feels guilty or whatever, just lets them live there practically for free." My hand went cold around my coffee cup. I turned to them, voice steady but low. "Did you say Rachel?" They nodded. "You know her?" "Unfortunately." I stood up and left without finishing my drink. By the time I reached home, my calm had burned away. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity, about how easily Rachel could turn my generosity into a joke. I scrolled through old texts, years of promises, of next month and when we're caught up, of you're the best sister ever. The words looked like debts I'd never collect. Then I typed 1 sentence and hit send. You have 2 weeks to move out. No explanations, no apologies, just finality. Ethan called almost instantly. I let it ring until the voicemail beeped. He tried again and again. Finally, I answered. "What the hell are you talking about?" he yelled. "You heard me." "You're evicting us?" "There's no lease, Ethan. You're guests. Guests don't get to insult their host and stay for free." He cursed, said I was dramatic, blamed Rachel, said she didn't mean it. "We're family, Yolanda." I let him shout until he ran out of words. 2 weeks, I repeated, then hung up. That night, Rachel showed up unannounced, eyes red, holding Levi. She didn't knock, just buzzed until I opened the door. It's a misunderstanding, she cried. Please, it's not what you think. I asked one question. Did you or did you not tell people I gave you the apartment because I'm rich and stupid? She froze, eyes darting. No answer. That silence was enough. Minutes later, Ethan pulled up in his car and barked, Rachel, get in. He didn't even look at me. The door shut. The night went still. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt, just relief. 2 weeks. They had 2 weeks to be gone, and I had 2 weeks to finally breathe. 3 days later, my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen in months. Mom. She started light, the way she always did when she was trying to disguise the real reason for calling. Hi, honey. How's work? Still enjoying that freedom of yours? Hi, Mom, I said flatly. You talked to Ethan, didn't you? There was a pause, then a sigh that sounded rehearsed. He told us you're kicking them out? Sweetheart, you can't do that. They have a child. My jaw tightened. They've been living in my apartment for 4 years, Mom, paying $500. It was supposed to be temporary. So now you're tripling it overnight? Why now, Yolanda? Because Rachel's been going around telling people I'm rich and stupid for letting them stay. I heard it in a cafe. They made me a punchline. She clicked her tongue, soft and patronizing. Oh, for heaven's sake. You know how people talk when they're stressed. Don't overreact. Family says things they don't mean. Dad ever call you stupid in public? I asked quietly. That shut her up for a second. Then her tone sharpened. Your father and I think you should reconsider. You're being emotional. Dad thinks that? He co-signed the loan, remember? That apartment isn't just yours. My blood ran cold. No, I bought it outright. With my money. He didn't sign anything. She hesitated, then doubled down. That's not how we remember it. It hit me right then. They weren't just defending Ethan. They were rewriting the story so I'd look like the villain for protecting myself. I ended the call. No yelling, no explanation. Just click. The silence afterward felt heavy, final. By evening, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from cousins, an uncle, even a neighbor from my parents' street. All the same script. Don't make waves. They're struggling. It's just money. You've always been the strong one. Let it go. The manipulation was so transparent, it almost made me laugh. Almost. Then, at midnight, my friend Cam sent me a screenshot. Rachel had posted a long, dramatic status on Facebook. Some people show their true colors when you need them most. Betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect us. Levi keeps asking why Aunt Yolanda doesn't love him anymore. There was even a photo. Rachel holding Levi, both looking tragically at the camera. Dozens of sympathy comments followed. Stay strong. Family can be the cruelest. Some people forget where they came from. I stared at it until my vision blurred. She'd weaponized her child's face for attention. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but in precision. If they wanted a villain, I'd be the most professional one they'd ever seen. The next morning, I printed an official eviction notice, signed, dated, notarized, and drove to the building. Rachel answered the door in sweats, mascara smudged, Levi on her hip. Her eyes flicked to the paper in my hand. Yolanda, please. I handed it to her calmly. You've got 10 days. She took it, her lip trembling. You'll regret this. I tilted my head. Will I? Behind her, I saw Ethan standing near the kitchen table, arms crossed, face blank, eyes full of something mean and familiar, the kind of look people give when they're cornered but too proud to admit it. I turned and walked away. No raised voices, no tears, just footsteps down the hall. The next afternoon, I came home to find a plain white envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was of my apartment door, the one Ethan and Rachel were still living behind, with the word thief carved deep beneath the peephole. No note, no message, just the photo. My pulse went cold. I forwarded it to my lawyer, then texted Ethan directly. Tell me you didn't do this. No reply. 2 hours later, another text came in. Guess you got what you wanted. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. That night, I parked outside the building and waited. Around 9 p.m., Rachel left with Levi. 10 minutes later, Ethan came out carrying a trash bag. I stepped out of my car. You carved it, didn't you? He froze, then shrugged. Guess you can add a new door to your list of accomplishments. You owe me for the damage, I said, voice low. He smiled. A cruel, empty thing. Good luck proving it. I took a slow step closer. They just installed hallway cameras last month. His smirk faltered. Just a flicker, but it was enough. I turned and walked back to my car. The night air smelled like rain and rot, like endings. As I started the engine, I whispered to myself, 8 more days. 8 days until peace. The next morning, my lawyer confirmed what I already knew. No signed lease meant no tenant rights. Ethan and Rachel were guests, guests who had overstayed their welcome. That should have been the end. But that night, around 2 a.m., a sound woke me, soft metal against glass. I turned off the lights, heart pounding, and crept toward the window. Someone was on the fire escape. A shadow crouched outside, hand near the latch. I slammed the frame open and shouted, "I see you!" The figure bolted, feet scraping against metal, disappearing into the dark. I didn't see a face, but I didn't need to. I filed a police report the next morning and copied Ethan in the email. No response. Later that week, movers arrived. By dawn, Ethan and Rachel were gone. The apartment they left behind looked like a battlefield. Walls scuffed, cupboards ripped open, carpet shredded. A single peanut butter handprint smeared across the window glass. And on the kitchen counter, one receipt. One item, a wood carving tool. I stood there for a long time, holding that small slip of paper. I didn't feel anger anymore, just clarity, the kind that burns slow and clean. They didn't just take advantage. They wanted me to feel sorry for them as they destroyed what I built. I paid for the repairs myself, $900 for a new door, fresh carpet, and paint, worth every cent. Some people break what they can't keep. It's how they say goodbye. 2 weeks later, the apartment looked brand new again. Fresh paint, new carpet, the air crisp with that clean, empty scent that only comes after chaos. I stood by the window, the same one that once had a peanut butter handprint smeared across it, and finally exhaled. For the first time in years, it was quiet. No late-night calls, no guilt texts, no Rachel, no Ethan. Just silence. A few days later, my new tenants moved in. A young couple, polite and soft-spoken. They handed me a bottle of wine and a small card that read, "Thank you for trusting us with your space. We'll take good care of it." They paid $3,000 up front. On time, no excuses. As I left the building, I passed by the old mailbox where Ethan's nameplate still hung crooked. I pulled it off and threw it in the trash. It clattered at the bottom like punctuation, an ending. But peace never lasts long in my family. It started with a call from Dad. No hi, no how are you, just, "You went too far." I stared out the window, phone pressed to my ear. Too far. They vandalized my property, broke in through my fire escape, and trashed the apartment. But sure, I'm the villain. He sighed. You know what your mother says, family doesn't take each other to court. They weren't family when they spread lies about me online. Rachel said you misunderstood. I laughed. Of course she did. His silence was long enough to answer everything. We're just worried about Levi, he finally said. He's caught in the middle. I know, I said quietly, and none of this is his fault. Then I hung up. The next few days turned into a storm I never saw coming. Texts started flooding in again. Old classmates, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, even people I barely knew. Yolanda, is it true you kicked out your brother's kid? Someone posted about you on a parenting forum. Hey, there's a Reddit thread about your family. You might want to see this. My stomach twisted as I clicked the link. Rachel had done it. She'd written a full post titled, "My sister evicted us right before Christmas." Every line dripped with manipulation. She painted me as a selfish, heartless woman who prioritizes money over family. She wrote about Levi crying every night, asking why Aunt Yolanda didn't love him. She conveniently left out the part about paying $500 rent, the vandalism, the carved door. The comments made my hands shake. That's disgusting. She must be miserable. Who evicts their own nephew? Thousands of strangers judging a story that wasn't even true. I closed my laptop and stared at the reflection on the screen. My own eyes, tired but steady. This was the final manipulation, the last attempt to make me feel small. And it wasn't working. A week later, I ran into Rachel at the grocery store. Of course, life has a dark sense of humor. She was in the produce aisle, Levi in the cart, holding a banana like a sword. I froze mid-step. She saw me before I could turn away. Yolanda, she said coolly, lips curling into a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Rachel. We stood there, two women surrounded by fluorescent lights and fruit, the smell of oranges hanging between us. Levi spotted me first. Aunt Yolanda, he said, waving his tiny hand. My heart clenched. Rachel's smile tightened. You sleep okay now? She asked. I smiled back, steady and unbothered. Better than ever. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, the one the new tenants had given me, and stood by the window. The apartment lights across the street flickered on, Families settling in, lives moving forward. For the first time, mine was moving forward too. The next morning, I checked my bank account. $3,000. Rent payment, on time, no excuses, no drama. It felt like peace had a number. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, when the air was cool and still, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No name, no return address, just my initials written in blue crayon. Inside was a drawing. A tall building, two stick figures holding hands under a heart. In shaky letters, Aunt Yolanda. No note, no message, just that simple drawing. My eyes stung before I could stop them. Levi had remembered me. Not the version Rachel painted online, not the villain, just me. I stuck the drawing on my fridge. Every time I walked past it, it reminded me that truth doesn't need to be defended. It just needs to exist. A few months later, Mom sent a short text. We should talk soon. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but clarity. Boundaries don't mean hatred, they mean peace. Ethan and Rachel are still living with my parents now, from what I hear. He's flipping sneakers online. She's working part-time at a salon. And me? I'm still here, working, traveling, breathing freely in a life that's finally my own. No guilt, no debt, no apologies. Just peace. And a crayon drawing on my fridge that reminds me how far I've come. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not the family disappointment. I'm the one who stopped performing.